Hello everybody, today I'm going to teach you how to fight any of the flying dragon class enemies in Elden Ring. I'll be breaking down the moveset that all these dragons share and some of the variations I've found so far. I will share 3 different dragon fights in this video that you can find relatively early, but the bulk of the video will be showing the one most people find earliest, Flying Dragon Agheel. So let's get started. For starter class, I personally picked the Samurai to have bleed from Uchigatana. That's going to be really useful. And I also picked the Crimson Amber Medallion for extra HP. Bleed will be really helpful for fighting these dragons early on in the game. I decided to fast roll, so I remove all equipment except for the sword, talisman, and leggings. I kept leggings on because I don't want to constantly look at these cheeks. I also want to get torn from Melina. It's not entirely needed for fighting the dragons, but it helps in creating space and closing gaps faster. I personally like to put in the pouch for the down D-pad input, so I don't have to fiddle around with the items in the hotbar. So to begin, I will be showing the attacks that all the dragons share. When aggro, they will always start with a harmless roar, in which you're getting a few hits early, but after that I can do any of these moves, depending on your position. I tend to always remain in front of them to hit the head, which hurts more. The first attack I'll talk about is the bite. For this one, they always turn their head sideways with an open mouth, and usually they do 2 back to back. It's pretty easy to roll, it's fairly telegraphed, but you can also just run away from it, depending on how close you are. Next one up is a stomp. This one's pretty simple. He raises his foot in order to crush you. Generally speaking, you can kind of just run away from it, but it's also pretty easy to roll. Next attack is a wing swipe. For this one, they'll keep their mouth closed and raise one of the wings slowly. It's a little tricky to roll. The hitbox is a little bit delayed, so I do find I get hit by this one a fair amount. They also have a swing slam, but it works almost identically to the swipe. The next one is a roar charge. For this one, they'll roar at you, then charge you with a bite, and then follow up with a headbutt right after. Usually you can just run away and create enough distance that it doesn't really matter, but make sure to roll the 2 primary hits if you're too close. This attack is a bit rare I find, but be prepared for it. They may only do it if you're a mid-range or so. Now for some fire attacks, next one is a sweeping fire attack. This one will always start with fire in Dragon's mouth, but it will delay the spray a little bit and do some horizontal / diagonal head movements. Another similar one is the tracking fire attack. This one will also start with fire in its mouth, but it will do a quick vertical head movement and spray at you very quickly. As the name implies, it will track you as well, so you kind of want to just outrun it sideways. Here's what they look like side by side, so you can tell them apart. Both these attacks can be dodged by running right to left or next to their face, and both seem to be a mid to long range attack, depending on where you are. Next up, the hovering fire AoE. This one will also start with fire in the mouth, but you will see it get off the ground and hover over it a little bit. This will make a circle of fire around them, so you can just run away from it. Now the flying fire spray, when they jump back in the air backwards aggressively, they're about to do a big fire spray, but different than the last one. This one's like one of Midir's attacks in Dark Souls 3, where you can go under and to the left of them to avoid it. Next one is one that looks similar to the last attack, without fire in its mouth. It is a flying slam, but it's a lot slower. For this one, they'll hang in the air for about 3 seconds while staring at you, and then slam on the ground. Their wings will flap a little bit faster when it's about to slam, so that's your tail that they're about to do it. But you can get used to the timing as well. This one really hurts, so make sure you learn the timing for this one. It's very consistent. This is how the last 2 look side by side. If you're behind a dragon, they will almost certainly do a tail swipe, and sometimes when you're just under them as well. I'd say it's fairly easy to roll on sight. It's fairly telegraphed. It's just about recognizing that it's happening. They also have this weird move where they Okay, obviously that's not quite intended. I assume it's some kind of leash mechanic. It does look very silly, but it is what it is, I guess. I would recommend going back to the head when they do this, because if you're not in a good position, they may do something really weird that you don't expect, especially the later dragons. Okay, so these are all the attacks any given dragon can do, so now I can show you an actual fight. I personally always like to go for headshots. As I said earlier, they do more damage than hitting him in the wing or the legs or whatever it might be. If you're using a bleed build like I am, especially in some of the stronger dragons later on with low level weapons, body shots work too, because the bleed will still apply at the very least. But if you can, I'll still recommend headshots. I personally find that flying slam is a really good one to punish the head. You just need to make sure to start running backwards very quickly. Here's the bleed doing some work if you need some convincing as well. By doing enough headshots, you can also stagger the dragon and get a riposte, which is about the same as the bleed procs as well. So that's why it's a good idea to hit the head even if you do little damage. And there goes the first fight. Here's me showing that this is a base level character and it's just with a +0 Uchigatana. I just forgot to show the weapon upgrade. Now I'm going to show you the next dragon fight. It's a tiny bit story related, but it's found in Liurnia. For this one, I took the shortcut around the storm castle to get to it early. This is where it is in the map if you haven't found it yourself. But if you've done some of the story runes, I take it you know where this is. So again, we're at base level. I still have my runes from the last dragon. I didn't really use them yet. I'm just going in at base level with +0 still. And yeah, this is a Glintstone dragon Smarag. This one is almost identical to the last one. As said, all the moves I discussed previous to this are shared by all the dragons. It may just vary whether the dragon flame is red or blue or some kind of other element. The only attack I believe that I noticed that was different is this magic arrow attack. Usually I do 2 back to back, and rolling it by side is pretty easy, I would say. As you can see, bleed still works on this dragon as well, and I haven't seen it not work in any dragons that I've found personally. Another repose from headshots. And there you go. Once again, with just a base level character, samurai class, and a +0 Uchigatana, I can kill a still relatively early dragon enemy, but definitely a little bit over my level, I would say. I'm almost certain any of the attacks would have one-shot me, or close. And finally, for the last dragon, we're gonna get kidnapped by the transporter chest to reach Agheel early. Be careful of these rats that can barely still hit you. From there, I made my way all the way to this area map right here. The dragon is actually right next to it, but I didn't want to make my way to a Lost Grace near it, so there's no issues, because this is definitely the dragon that killed me the most while recording this video. The first one took me 2 tries. I just got caught off guard the first time and died via fire attack, I think. And the second one I got first try. This one definitely took me a handful of attempts. I want to say around 4 or 5. For this dragon, I did use the levels I've gotten from the last fights and just a few runes I picked up to level up my vigor a little bit, because this one for sure will one-shot me with almost anything it can do. So just to give myself a little padding, I used some runes I got and all that for vigor. But the sword is still at +0 and everything else is still at base. So you already saw a little bit as I was going to the Grace, but this is Decaying Ekzykes? Ekzykes? I have no clue how to say it. This arena kind of sucks to fight him. It's very uneven. There's a lot of geometry they can get caught on and stuff, or even the dragon can get cut off. So be mindful of your surroundings. I think this dragon might be more susceptible to bleed. I'm guessing the Decaying idea gives it a little bit less resistance, I think. Because I definitely bled it multiple times for a fight, where the other 2 was maybe 2 or 3 times. You should be aware that the stomp attack that we reviewed earlier actually has a Scarlet Rot effect on it now. So if it ever does a stomp, you can't really punish the legs. You have to get away from it and go for the head instead, which is not really a big deal, but just a warning. And if it ever does the roar mid-fight, the roar will actually cause some rot to spew out of his mouth as well, so just be careful of that as well. I would definitely recommend using the horse more in this fight than the other 2, and also use the jumps. I think the rot spreads faster than the fire, and still hurts just as much. So I'd be safe and do some of the horse calling and then jump around. Make sure you don't get hit by the rot. Be careful when it lands on elevated land, like in this bit right here. Well, it can teleport away from it sometimes. This was what resulted in most of my deaths in this fight, from being in a really weird position and not knowing how to react to it. And last thing I want to worry about is that this dragon has one specific new move, the Rot Cloud. This is the most dangerous attack we've discussed today, from any of the dragons I want to say, especially at early level. The tail for it is whenever it stands on 2 legs and winds its head back. It's going to spew up a Rot Cloud on the ground when it does that, and it has a huge radius. I found that the best way to avoid it is to get on your horse as soon as possible and go behind him. It almost doesn't matter if you're too far away from his tail area or whatever. I would just suggest you go behind him instead of away from him. If you're far away enough as is when it does that attack, you're safe to stay away from it. But the range is very deceptive. It can go much farther than you would expect, and much more quickly than you'd expect as well. Make sure to wait for it to disappear before you go back to the fight. I did get lucky sometimes when I was going away from it instead of behind its tail, but I think it was because of elevation differences between us. I think they helped me out, so I wouldn't rely on it if I were you. I think I just got lucky because I've tried this before and it doesn't really work really well. As you can see here, the cloud doesn't kill you instantly like the other rod attacks, but the build-up is very fast and it still does chip damage. So if you're inside the cloud, you're almost certainly dead anyway. And there it goes. Once again, this is only done by leveling Vigor and a +0 Uchigatana. I just forgot to show it for a few seconds. If you'd like to see my full fights and attempts of these dragons in an unlisted video or something, just let me know. There's a lot of little memes that you didn't get to see for sure, that it's probably good to know so you don't do yourself or know what can happen. So yeah, just leave a comment and let me know if you would like to see that. And that's it for today. I think if you fight these dragons enough, you'll find that they're actually not too bad. Doesn't matter which variant it is. But especially in your player, I did just want to make this so you can kind of break down all the moves it has and seeing how to react to them. And learn how to react to them and how to punish them. Would hopefully make this feel more manageable. I think that can be the case for any boss if you break it down enough. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you'd like to see more Elden Ring guides, do let me know. I'm still working on my first playthrough over on my Twitch channel, but I'm getting fairly close to the end. I think within a week or two I can beat the game. But if you want to check that out as well, make sure to give me a follow over there. And if you enjoy this channel or my content or my voice, whatever, make sure to subscribe to my channel as well. Lately I've been doing a lot of Elden Ring clips and guides. I do want to eventually speed on this game if that's interests you. And also do some Demon Souls content here and there. That was my main game before Elden Ring came out. But I'll still make some of that here and there. Alright, I hope you enjoyed. See you guys around. Bye bye.